Okay, so today I'm going to be looking at taking some more drawing pads and jotter pads and giving them a new lease of life. This is also going to hopefully make products that I can then go on to sell at craft fairs and such. So, first thing that I'm going to use is I've dug in my cupboard, dig, and I found a pretty old pucker pad. Nice maker pad, very nice quality paper and all of that. But I don't use it. I never have. I'm not gonna use it. Modern technology with the typing and whatnot. So, what can I do with it? I can make it into something new. So, the front cover is actually quite a thick material, which is good because that means if I put something over that, that's going to look really nice. It's wire bound, which is always good, and it's got really nice quality striped pages. The back is cheap board as normal, and these are actually perforated, so even better. So my only problem is I'd scribbled junk on the back. This is years and years and years and years ago. So as you can see, what I've done is I've put some double-sided tape down there, and I've gone off and I found some craft papers. Now, even though I don't do crafting anymore as such, I've always kept a small stash of craft papers, and you know when you buy a magazine and there's like, have a bundle of craft papers for free, woo! That's when I'll pick up some, and then I can simply stick this onto the back. That'll cover up that and any mark, and that redoes the back. So I'm just going to quickly do that. So it's a good old double-sided tape again. This one was from Hobbycraft, so it's not woohoo double-sided tape, but it will do. So whereas in other videos I've done it on the paper that I'm applying, in this case I'm doing it to this bit. I'm just going to stick the spare bits in the middle. At least with double-sided tape you can find the end. Depending on tape I can never find the end on. And just do that. So bumping right up against the edge. I'll just put in a couple of little bits over here. I do them at an angle, just to increase the chance of them actually sticking. Right, so that's the back. Now, with this paper normally, with an A5 pad I would stick it that way. Makes sense, doesn't it? But this paper is portrait instead of landscape, so I'm really restricted on how I can stick it. So I will lose a chunk of this paper, and as it's double-sided as well, we lose a side. So, if you really like a paper and you've found, and it is double-sided, try and scan or get a photocopy of it, and then you've got something for the record. But they don't like you reproducing their papers, so just be aware of that. Right, so still trying to grow back my nails. Yeah, there we go. And as normal, I'm just folding back that end and give it a slight angle as well. This is kind of the sort of project that's really handy when it's tipping it down with rain or you're just bored, because you don't really need that much to do it. Just a few colouring pencils, some old scrap paper. Even I tell you what, even wrapping paper would do this. Though you want a thick wrapping paper, because anything too thin is going to tear, especially once it starts getting sticky. Just whack that back down. And just get this bit up. Never ending fight with the sellotape. I always tend to take sellotape quite slowly so that it doesn't go too mad. So the easiest way I find of doing this is to open up the book and to lay the piece that you're going to do flat, and that way you can really get decent line up. So I'm just going to move my mouse. I am very restricted on my working area, so first bit I want to do is just line up the corner and make sure the edge is in. I think I've gone too far. No, we're okay. And then I'm just following it down the edge. There we go, a little bit too buffered up against there, but it's not bad. And then smooth it out. Now, if you've got a guillotine, this is where you can get your guillotine and trim round. So let's go and get the guillotine and trim this piece out. Now, I've only got a small guillotine, so I was only able to do one side, and the other side I'm going to have to do by hand. So bear with me. And just making sure that the scissors are right next to the card. There we go. So, that's the back. That's nice and neat, and that's not offensive. And the thing is, with a lot of craft cards, if you get them in the really muted colours, you could do a sketch over this. So that's another little thing that you can do. So this one, I could do a sepia, really rough sketch, like a Da Vinci sketch. If ever you've seen Leonardo da Vinci's sketches, you could create something like that onto the back. In fact, I might do that later. Oh dear, I've just inspired myself for more work. Right, so the front is going to be roughly the same now. First thing I tend to do is I just make sure any of my scrap pieces match. No, so that's going to be a fresh sheet. So with the craft card, you've got sometimes you get a slightly smoother side and a slightly more patchy side. Both absolutely fine. For this one I'm going to go with the slightly smoother side. So I'm happy with that. And that will sit just over that once we get it cut. So just quickly get that cut. I've not got it cut in shape yet because I wasn't sure 100% if it was A5. Now, I think my guillotine's getting a bit old because quite often when I cut what apparently is A5, I get two different paper sizes. And this is A4, so they should be absolutely even, so let's see. Now, if it was full page, yeah, we'd just about be in. Full page, slightly out. So that one's the smaller one, which I'm going to go with the smaller one because I'm still going to have an overhang here. Now, at this stage, I'd say do your drawing first and then stick onto your page. And also put your double-sided tape onto here and not onto this bit. For that bit, no worries because that was quick and simple. But for this, because you want to just take that little bit more care with it when you're putting it down. I'll do it onto that first. Right, so what to draw? Just grab my mouse. So this cardstock I tried a couple of days ago to put markers on, and that didn't quite work. The markers didn't oversaturate, but they didn't. The colours came out muddied, which was a shame. And I think I need a little bit more testing before I do any of that. So I'm just going to grab a photo. Actually, that would work. It's funny, the parts of Dorset where I live, I've only seen a little bird called a nuthatch now over kind of 45 minutes away from me. And not yet had any in the garden, which is a shame because when I lived in Berkshire we used to have them as a constant birdie in the garden, and they're so adorable. I'm going to see, mind you, if I do that I'll be using blues. Actually yes, this would work. I'll just have to oversaturate a little bit of the colour. So you guys are going to want to see this, aren't you? So we're going to zoom in. Now for this I need my image to be very much in the centre because I'm going to be trimming off a chunk of the end, so I don't want it too far to one side. If I do anything I'll push it the other side. So freehand drawing of a birdie. Can she do it? So I've got my image on my computer that I can zoom into. And for a change I'm actually going to start with a 2B pencil. This is simply so that I can get the detail that I want. When it comes to rubbing out on this cardstock, it's very difficult, I'd say, to do because you start stripping off layers. So it's best to keep a really seriously light hand. And right, this little birdie, if you feed it nuts, things like hazelnuts and such, it takes them to a tree and it wedges them in a little crack and it hammers them so it can eat them. And they can run up a tree. They're kind of like a tree creeper. And they make a really, really, really cute fluffy sound. Little me me meeps. But I used to absolutely love seeing them in the garden because they're so full of character. We had an apple tree in the garden, so they were always running up and down that, quite often catching the ants. But they would go on to certain bird feeders, but fastidious on to what feeders they would actually go on to, which was interesting. If you feed birds in your garden, you will notice that sometimes certain birds won't go near particular feeders. And it's well worth just noting who goes to what feeder, because if there's a birdie you really want to feed, or one that you don't want to get onto the feeder so much, you can get particular feeders for certain birdies. So I'm just mapping out like blocks, kind of, yeah, building block kind of shapes, just where I'm going to go. I think it's because I'm doing this in a quite light pencil, I can make adjustments later when I'm applying the colour. And I'm not going to put too much detail in. Yeah, and last time I said that, we know where that ended. Like tree creepers, they do have quite a stumpy little tail. If you're lucky enough to have any form of wildlife coming into your garden, living around your house or in the neighbourhood, is such a privilege. Just think this could have been a compy or a Deinonychus. This could be a T-Rex's cousin. But either way, it's a beautiful little critter. And they have quite a long toes for the gripping on the trees. This guy's got quite a lot of fluff back here. And the other foot, oddly enough, because the bird is actually gripping onto a tree, the other foot is right up by the head. So you can see my little sketch there. So I've really, for once, I've held back slightly on the detail, but that will probably change. Now, colour-wise, parts of this bird are orange. There's peaches, there's slate blues, there's blacks, there's greys. It's not a colourful bird as such, but during the breeding season they do seem to be a bit brighter. And what I used to do is, because we had a very old apple tree, I used to take a fat block and rub it into the bark, and that was how I got this photo, because the nuthatch wanted the fat, and the only way to get it was to sit on the tree and kind of poke its bill into the cracks to get the fat block. So I can take my little drawing pad and just line that up. Yep, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to use a range of pencils from the Prismacolors, the Polychromos and the Luminance today as normal, just so that I can get a really good coverage of the waxes and the oils. Also just so that I'm not just using one type of pencil. A little bit of variation doesn't hurt. Just stretching to grab a couple of pencils. Right. So you can see quite a lot of colours come in to this. So the first place I'm going to start off with is the eye, because as long as that's in focus, that's one of the most important pieces. Right. And it's going to be keeping a very light hand. Because this card is not going to take many layers, every layer is going to have to be a little bit more cautiously put on here. So by keeping a light hand, I'm not going to destroy the paper, and it's going to give me a better opportunity of getting some layers down. And you'll see that I'm not just putting one colour in one place, I'm going to be transitioning it through the drawing, so that there's a lot of continuity through the image. And instead of putting just white down, I'm going to use other colours like the blues, and this should help keep the realism. If I was doing like a cartoony bird, then I would probably just stick white straight down, but I do want a touch of realism to this image. so I will be paying attention to where the direction of the feathers go. I'm not going to be able to put in every single feather, but it's going to be close. I'm not worried if my underdrawing is going to show up under the colour, because if anything it'll just add to the sketchiness of it. And the only place I'm probably going to have true black is on the eye. And like always, the pencils are going to be kept really nice and sharp so that we can get into that detail. So for this piece, I'm going to use a kind of pale lemon. But whenever you're colouring in something, always remember to do it how you see it. Don't kind of just look for colours that other people use. Have an experiment and find your own colour combinations. Because when you do a drawing, it needs to be your interpretation of what you see, not somebody else's. Because we all see things differently. Being a little bit careful in places, because I'm pretty much hoping that my underdrawing is as correct as I can get it freehand. Need to sharpen that one. Grab my little bin pot. As normal, I've got about 8 sharpeners to hand, just so that I can make sure that I'm using the right one for the right pencil. Part of the reason I've chosen a bird is because the drawing stroke jotter pad that this image is going to go onto has a green border, so it's more of nature colours, and I want to replicate that in the image that's going to go onto there. And the brown paper and the creams will match with the backing, so I'm trying to keep those colours flowing through all the way. So I'm still just quite literally just blocking in areas of colour. When these birds have their babies, the babies are a much duller colour, and the parents have to put up with a lot of kind of feed me squeaking. And the baby's just going to sit there waiting for the parent to ram the food down their throat. think some of the worst ones for being excessively lazy is starlings. If ever you see a flock of starlings and their babies, the babies will sit on top of a bird feeder and they will squeak and squeak and squeak, and the parents literally just sat there picking up food and shoving it in their mouth with the look on their face of kind of, well, you're sat in the middle of the food, why don't you just pick it up yourself? So yeah, starlings and lazy little babies. It's either that or they're not very smart. Right, sharpening up a pencil again. I'm just going to start adding a little bit of the wings. So this is probably going to be more the darkest colour. So for the back, I need to do a lot more blues. So I'm just going to use a Prismacolor very, very lightly to add in a light layer of a light blue. In fact, the more I look at the drawing, I'm going to need some very light purples as well in this. So I've got my luminance purple. And I'm just going to add a little bit to the wingtips. That's the thing, the more you look at a picture, the more you'll see. Right, then I'm going to go for a slightly darker blue. This one's blue slate, I think. And I'm using a light circular motion in small circles just to get as much coverage down as possible. And bring a little bit of that up onto the head. So at this point now I can start to add in a little bit more detail. So I can actually use that slate blue down just on the kind of hip area of the bird where there were patches of blues. And now with the oranges, I don't want to go mad with the oranges and the peaches, so I'm literally just going to bring in a couple of tiny weeny bits. And these darker bits, I'm going to go over them with paler colours just to blend them in a little bit more. And these are my older Prismas. Well, these Prismas, some of them worked okay, some of them have just shattered over the years. I've had them about 25 plus years. So here's the salmony kind of peach, just to blend them out. And just to soften up that colour, because I don't want it to be too strong. Need a little bit of that up here, and a little bit down over here. So I'm going to come back up to the eye and now start to add in proper detail. So the first thing I'm going to do is just block in parts of the eye. And I'm actually going to use a dark blue, an indigo blue, a really sharp one, just to make sure I've got enough layers down there. Then I'm going to actually do the highlights in a pale blue. And now I can bring in a dark brown. And back to the indigo blue. Like I say, you'll need to find what colours you feel work with an image best. Right. Now, I've built up, I apologise about my hand getting in the way, I've built up quite a lot of dust in this area now, so I've got my makeup brush and I'm just going to quickly whack that dust away. So yeah, try not to use your hands because you'll just smudge it and you'll get grease onto the image. So now, using that indigo blue, I'm going to just put in a little bit of detail, which are the darkest areas along here, and then I can come in again with greys and just soften that out. So I'm literally just finding the colour and blocking it in. And then up here I'm just mapping in a couple of little areas of detail. So now I can come in with the dark grey, and let's go for that one. Just need to sharpen that a little bit. That pencil broke quite quickly, so just whack off that bit. And then I'm just going to go back to the eye and just redefine it a little tiny bit. Now I'm going to bring in a white and go almost in between the cream bits. I'm going to start putting in a couple of the really strong highlights. Now, I'm using both the luminance whites and the polychroma white because of the difference in the strength that they've got. I must go shopping and get some more of these. Because it's so sharp, I can map in a tiny amount of detail into there. Just to give some texture. Just going to come over this side. And resharpen. Now the bird hasn't got a white head, but what it is there's a lot of mottling reflection. So I'm putting tiny white highlights, and then I can come through and put some darker blue ones in there. Okay, so now I'm going to just fill out the rest of the feathers with the white where they need it. See, if you try and blow away the dust, it won't blow. Had a couple of luminance pencils where they seem to fracture really quickly, so I'm just having to be quite aware of that. And just this very, very, very light little area here. So now I'm going to come through with the lemony colour again and just pick out a couple of the darkest areas. In fact, I'm also going to sharpen up the peachy colour and bring that in. Now, the reason I'm doing this image on the paper on the desk instead of mounting it onto the card is the amount of pressure I use might go and indent the paper. So I'd also not want to have the book open flat and then the risk of it tearing or anything like that. So I always do my images on a kind of separate bit and then paste them across. In fact, I've just noticed I've lost a little bit of the grey in there. So I'm just going to add in little bits of grey. Even though the luminants are quite a waxy pencil, they do keep the kind of sharpness that you want from them for quite a while. Just get a little bit more of the peach in there. I need a kind of golden colour, so I think I found one. With nuthatches, there's also a lot of colour around the rear end. In that yellow. And just defining up the feet and claws. Now for the wings, I'm going to need a kind of bluish colour, but not too blue. So I'm actually going to bring in Mediterranean blue, and I'm going to keep it quite blunt so that I can get a good amount of colour down. And these birds aren't as blue, say, as the American blue jay or anything like that, but it's just a noticeable colour. It's more like a lapwing, where you get the colour only in certain light. Now I'm going to come in with the indigo blue and just start to map out the detail on the feathers. Now for this I'm going to rotate the image because I need to get my lines quite straight. Okay, so as you can see there, I've just added in a little bit more detail, and sadly the blue Prismacolor that I had has done what Prismacolors do best. So I'll be using the equivalent on the luminance, just so that it doesn't cause too much chaos. So I noticed that I've got a little bit of detail in the wing that I haven't actually put in, so I'm just going to add that in. And now I can start working on the darker part of the back. And this time I'm actually going to get a couple of purpley colours and bring those in, just add a little bit of richness into the colour of the bird. And now just coming through again with the Mediterranean blue, so it gives a nice mix of the tonal variations. So now I'm just going to come through with a tiny bit of black just to pick up a couple of areas. So now I'm just going to bring in the grey luminance to push a couple more colours. I don't think my camera is actually showing quite the colour that I'm physically seeing. It's looking a lot more kind of bright luminous blue on the screen. So I will try and sort that out in a little bit. In fact, let's see if we can sort that out. Try and give you an idea of the proper colours. Right, let's see, it's a contrast I think. So, oh no, wrong way. That's a bit closer. It's not 100% as it is for me on physically looking at it, but that'll give you a better idea of what the colour is looking like right now. So just to start adding in some more colours into there, just to give it some warmth. I'm just going to add in a slightly deeper blue into the head. Actually, we're going to try a grey first. So here we go. So now I've just got to finish a little bit more detail onto the back. And then I can add some very, very rough detail to the tree. But what I might do is just do coloured circles and blend them really smooth for the background. So I just need to sort out the back of the head. So I'm going to start with a mid-tone this time because I've put down quite a lot of light tones as a base. So I'm just going to move into the mid-tones just to soften out a couple of the areas. I'm now applying a little bit more pressure. And also adding in a little bit of the mid-tone into the main body. So, me and rotational drawings. And still following the flow of the bird. And there's like a very, very, very light patch up here. And then it gets a bit darker again up here. So where I've put those dark bits already, that's going to act like a underpainting. So it'll show through, but it'll just be muted. And I'm just adding dots of blue up onto the forehead where I said there was that reflective bit. And then I can put the white back over there. And that will just hopefully blend in nice and smoothly. So now the bird's got a much smoother coat to it. And there's still bits of the paper showing through the body here and there. Now I'm going to try a different pencil. This is a Derwent Chinese White. I don't actually know where I got this one from, and I haven't been able to find quite the same one. And it's a little bit more opaque, but for adding in tiny bits of detail here and there, it works really nicely. I'll ignore my phone, which is dunking. Right, into the last bit, so now I'm back onto the luminance. Just adding in teeny weeny bits of spotting. And then when I get a little bit further down, I'll just add in kind of highlight bit. That's what's so nice when you've got a decent reference photo and you can just zoom in and catch key bits. I'll just push that highlight a little bit more. And just neaten up a little bit there. And that is going to be the main image. So, happy with the main image. So once again, just go and get my pad that it's going to sit on and just see where we sit. So that's going to be nice and centered. Let's bring the camera out so you guys can see. So overall that is going to be really nice and centered on the actual pad, which is good because that's kind of where I want the image to go. So at this stage what I can then do is go onto the tree and then the background, but I'm going to leave that for another video and hopefully we'll get that done within another hour. So in the end, this little pucker pad will be covered with a nuthatch in a tree scene. So I hope this has inspired you to have a go at doing a doodle and getting it onto an old sketchbook or an old writing pad and just revamping, especially with bits that you don't use. If you've got one of these pads and you've written a couple of pages and then not done it, take out the old pages, create a new frontage and a new back, and you can even gift it to someone. So until next time, and hopefully in the next video I'll attack the background and we'll really go to town on it. In fact, I must say I do enjoy using this craft card. It's not just for crafting, you can get a bit experimental with it and create different things as we're doing today. So I hope this has inspired you guys to have a go, enjoy, and happy drawing. So till next time, take care.